Residents along the East Coast hope for a restful night after a large earthquake. The magnitude 5.8 quake rattled nerves from Atlanta to Boston.
That's right, and while there are no reports of major damage or severe injuries, the quake caught many people by surprise. Danielle Nottingham reports from Washington, D.C.
A rare midday earthquake triggered evacuations along the East Coast Tuesday. It interrupted a news conference in Manhattan and a ball game in Cleveland.
There's another tremor. Holy mackerel.
On the streets, people called and texted family and friends. Many were right in the middle of their workday when the earthquake hit.
Everything started shaking and everybody started running through the hallways.
The first thing that came to my mind was like terrorist bomb or something. I was actually happy when I heard it was just an earthquake.
The quake's epicenter was near Mineral, Virginia, but it was felt almost the entire length of the East Coast.
The rocks on the East Coast are a better transmitter of energy than the rocks here on the West Coast.
The capital was evacuated and later reopened. While it was closed, lawmakers held their first off-campus session since the September 11th attacks. A camera focused on the White House shook when the quake hit. President Obama did not feel the tremor on a golf course in Martha's Vineyard, but he was promptly on the phone with his advisors who reported no severe damage to U.S. infrastructure. The quake did damage brick buildings like this one in Baltimore and spires at the Washington National Cathedral. A police helicopter circled the Washington Monument looking for cracks, and with good reason.
Earthquakes don't usually happen alone.
Seismologists say the probability of aftershocks lessens over time, but they could come days, weeks, or even years later. Danielle Nottingham, CBS News, Washington.
Tremors from that earthquake could be felt right here in mid-Michigan. Earlier today, Stacia Mullaney caught up with a few people who felt the shaking inside a downtown Lansing building and explains why we could feel it hundreds of miles away.
Shaking, rocking, swaying. Call it what you want, but in Bogie Tower, they felt it.
We were just sitting here working, doing our thing, and the next thing I knew, I felt my chair rocking back and forth.
The plants were swinging back and forth, and it was just shaking, and I felt like an earthquake.
They say the shaking lasted less than 30 seconds, but was much more than just the building moving in the wind.
It definitely felt different than anything I had ever felt in this building before.
I've never felt anything like that. My initial thought was, what kind of construction is happening out there? But as it got more pronounced, I just had to think it had to be an earthquake.
This is the blow-up of the Virginia earthquake.
Showing us his seismograph reading, MSU professor Kazuya Fujita calls it an unusual event.
This is the event that was felt here as recorded here. So this is a recording of the ground motion at MSU.
So why can we feel the tremors nearly 700 miles away? Well, Professor Fujita says it's all about geology.
Earthquakes in the eastern U.S. are felt over a much wider area because the ground, shall we say, is more solid, so the energy travels farther before it dies out.
But he says the shaking might not be over yet.
There's likely to be some aftershocks. It's hard, you can't predict earthquakes, so we don't know where it will go from here.
But he says if something good came from today's tremors, well, he now has some new material to kick off classes next week. Stacia Mullaney, 6 News.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Well, the professor says the intensity of the tremors we felt here only registered at about a 2 or 3 on a scale of 12.
Well, some wet weather is already hitting our area tonight. Chief Meteorologist David Young joins us now with our first look at the forecast. David, how much rain will we see overnight?
Some areas share between a half an inch, getting close to an inch in spots, but should be just shy of that. Live Storm Tracker 6 Doppler radar very active tonight with nothing severe, but lots of lightning and showers and thunderstorms continuing out there for us. This is all trekking off towards the east and southeast fairly slowly, only at about 20 miles per hour or so. In fact, we'll put this in motion for you. You can see how it's advancing towards the east and southeast, and there is more activity off to the northwest we got to keep an eye on as well. See a few warnings there in northern lower Michigan. Future track over the next couple of hours takes this activity and begins to shift it towards the east, but then we'll watch to the northwest as that activity begins to spread its way down towards mid-Michigan. So a second round of storms is certainly possible during the late night hours. Your forecast, 67 out right now, will hold in the mid to the upper 60s through tomorrow morning at around 7 o'clock. Tomorrow afternoon is really when I'm most concerned with the prospects for some stronger storms, so we'll discuss that in Precision Cast for you coming up a little bit later in weather.
Thanks, David. Well, Lansing City officials are already starting to talk about next year's budget. This after projecting even more revenue loss from decreasing property values. Here's a look at the property tax revenue the city may end up losing. In the last fiscal year, projections show revenue started to decline to around $34.7 million. In the current fiscal year, the city projects it'll collect even less, about $31.5 million. Then in 2013, the city is expected to bring in about $28.5 million. There is a possibility there may be a millage request on the November ballot. Voters rejected a millage last May, but officials say people need to ask themselves some very tough questions.
Are you comfortable with the level of services that are being provided? And you have to balance that against what you're willing to pay. And that's a very tough question in these economic times.
The Lansing City Council has to decide by this coming Monday whether or not to put the millage on the November ballot.
Local volunteers will hit the sidewalks soon to help Lansing officials assess some 760 miles of walkways around the city. Volunteers will help to create a database of sidewalk conditions, making sure they're wide enough and are handicap friendly. Organizers say it's important to make the community more walkable and rideable.
Sidewalks need to be usable for everybody, old, young, handicapped, not. It's just a matter of making sure that everything is accessible for everyone.
For more information on the project, you can give the Michigan AARP a call. That number 517-292-3078.
Well, classes are already in full swing at Lansing Catholic High School, and with the first day of school comes a new drug policy. In June, administrators decided that all faculty, staff, and students will be drug tested. It's the first Michigan high school to enforce these kind of regulations. School officials say it's not just about safety, but also about getting students to think twice.
Our hope here is not that, hey, we get to catch some kids after we test them. Our hope is that all the kids will pass. We do not want to break kids down. We do not want to break that relationship down between us and the students. Our effort here is to build them up. You know, to empower those that are making good decisions to continue to make good decisions.
Principal Maloney says the testing will begin September 12th and the whole process will take just a few weeks.
Viewers on our Facebook page sounded off about the new drug policy. Megan Palmatier says it seems like the people that would be upset about this are the people that have something to hide. But Jay Waldrop says drug tests do not prevent drug use and rarely catch it. This is a waste of the parents and schools' money that could be better used. And Kimberly Wright says, I believe the fear of being tested will make kids think twice before using. I think drug testing should be done in public schools also. If you'd like to join the conversation, head over to our WLNS Facebook page.
A big step for rebel fighters in Libya as they push toward ousting longtime leader Muammar Gaddafi. Rebels entered Gaddafi's compound, but not without a fight, as troops loyal to the Libyan leader continue to press back. There's still no sign tonight of Gaddafi, but those battling to get him out say they will continue to hunt him down. And NATO officials say airstrikes will continue as well until Gaddafi is out of power.
For the Gaddafi regime, this is the final chapter. The end is near, and events are moving fast.
A former Libyan ambassador to the UN predicts the entire country will be in rebel hands within 3 days.
Well, the news that Libya is close to freedom is hitting home for some MSU students. Chris Casquejo takes us to a celebration that broke out on campus this afternoon.
With flags in hand, about 30 Libyan students and their family members took over the rock on Michigan State's campus.
I hope everybody in Libya happy, and I hope everybody will be safe, and I'm so proud because I'm Libyan.
Libya! Libya! But lines of communication to their homeland are down, so for some,
I'm a little bit worried about my family in Libya, in Zwara, but we are so happy that we eventually get our freedom.
And many here hope Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi will be captured soon and brought to justice.
Why he tortured us? This is a big question.
But for the children, it's a day filled with hope.
They really want to go to Libya so I can see my family. Libya is free and everybody is happy.
I'm so excited that Libya is free. Yay!
Spontaneous declarations of independence like this,
free. Libya united, Libya free,
breaking out all over the country. In East Lansing, Chris Casquejo, 6 News.
Well, state employees could soon be paying more for their health insurance coverage. State lawmakers will be voting on a revised proposal that will limit the amount of money a public employee can pay toward their health coverage. The caps range right now from $5,500 for a single employee to $15,000 for a family. Some local governments could opt to require employees to pay 20% of their coverage instead. Elected officials would be included in this plan, but many state employees and university workers would not be affected unless the state constitution is also changed.
More than 500 bar and restaurant owners say they plan to ban state lawmakers from their businesses, saying they're frustrated with the state's smoking ban. Members of the Protect Private Property Rights in Michigan say the ban has cost the state an estimated $200 million. They say businesses have been hurt and people have lost jobs as a result. In addition, the group says the state has lost tax and lottery revenue. Owners plan to start the ban on September 1st.
A Marshall man who was critically injured in a plane crash has died. Our media partners at the SitPat tell us that 59-year-old John Hoffman crashed his plane in a field near Brooks Airfield around 6 o'clock Sunday evening. And according to witnesses, Hoffman was towing a glider at the time. After it disengaged, the plane began to spiral and nosedive toward the